All right, today we're going to walk through the application walkthrough for the employee onboarding click-through deck. Again, this deck is really meant to be used in order to go and show a prospect or a customer kind of the experience of the K2 platform. In this case, as opposed to other videos we've shot where we focused around SharePoint, this entire video is and click-through deck is really focused around applications that you can build on top of the K2 platform that exist outside of SharePoint. And so, internal, that's our BPA approach, typically found with more Black Pearl centric deals. Now, within this particular deck, you're going to go and see things like business applications driving end-to-end business scenarios. So in the case of today's example, it's going to be an employee onboarding scenario. Surfacing up concepts around enterprise forums. And so a big value proposition of the K2 platform is this concept of electronic enterprise forms that you can build and reuse across applications within the organization. So we're going to take a look at that here in a second. Also, to key on that, integration across multiple line of business systems. And so the ability to go and bring in data from different departments or different back-end technologies or different systems and surface those all into composite forms, and in this case, composite workflow processes as well. And then rich process insight and dashboards. We're going to see some of the native K2, or I should say some of the native reporting capability within the K2 platform surfaced up and made available through things like view flow and process dashboards, etc. Now, you don't have to always show this particular slide. Sometimes I often actually hide it, but this is just for you to know exactly what's going to be in the context of this overall presentation. So really, again, at the core of our business is this concept that K2 is a platform that allows you to go and build business process apps, and that you can build these apps that span the enterprise and can exist both within on-premises installations as well as within the cloud. So that means either tying into on-premises data or in the cloud, or it means running physically on-premises or obviously within the cloud. There's a couple of key components of our platform that everyone should be aware of. First of all is the concept around electronic forms. Again, that's going to be our K2 Smart Forms technology, which allows you to go and build rich, interactive, dynamic forms that can be consumed on multiple different types of experiences, either large desktop monitors or laptops or tablets, all the way down to mobile devices that you probably have in your pocket today. And the design of these particular forms, again, is based within the web, and it's a drag and drop design experience to go and design those forms. And there's no code written to do anything from creating the form all the way through managing the rules and deployment. At the core of our platform, obviously, is this robust workflow engine that allows us to go and author and execute and version and manage robust workflow patterns and processes. And along with that, obviously, is the tooling that goes along there as well. So again, much like the electronic form story, also in the workflow category, everything from a design perspective is a no-code, low-code solution where you have the ability to go and design workflow processes utilizing visual drag and drop tooling and configuration. And then lastly is really this concept of enterprise apps. So really the story here is that you don't have to have a rich, expensive, deeply ingrained development team to go and start building these apps. Users that go through an honest amount of K2 training are able to go and start designing these applications using our rich and interactive design tooling framework. So in the example we're going to see today, we're actually going to start within the context of an HR onboarding solution. So the scenario here is that there's some kind of either HR representative or HR hiring manager that might need to go and onboard a new employee into their organization. And they would be presented with a dashboard very much like this. Obviously, this is all built completely on top of our K2 Smart Forms technology, and it can be stylized and themed to really look like anything. So it could be the look and feel of the prospect's corporate branding, or it could be, as you can see here, kind of the branding that we have internal at K2. A couple of key concepts you're seeing here are a list of different actions that you can take within this overall onboarding scenario. So you can go and look at reporting processes that are specific to contractors or more general or broad. You can look at tasks that are assigned to the current user. You can even go so far as spin off individual processes that do things like assign tasks or send messages or log a conversation that maybe has to happen. At the top, you'll also notice some tabbing features within this form, and this allows us to go also and showcase and surface some of the reporting capabilities here. So in this particular case, we're looking at process metrics across this HR onboarding scenario, so we get rich insight into things like where the different processes may be stuck at, where are we hiring employees by a certain department, how are we doing our role distribution by gender, and maybe what does the onboarding scenario look like, or what does this, at least the process start look like down there at the bottom. So in order to get started, we're going to go ahead and click on that employee onboarding icon there, and that's going to go ahead and launch a K2 Smart Form for us. Again, forms can either be something that you fill data into, or as in the previous example, you saw it more of a dashboard perspective. But this particular form allows us to go and collect all the information we need about the employee that we're going to be onboarding into our company here. You'll note that on this form, there are rich controls that are bound to various different data sources. So for instance, what's highlighted now is us selecting the department head. So basically the department that this particular employee will be onboarded into, and that could reach out to various different backend systems. A lot of our customers use Active Directory for that. We natively and easily integrate and tie into that system to surface up information there. You'll also notice that we wanted to go and select maybe which group that this particular employee is going to be onboarded into, and based upon that decision, things like accounting or HR or IT or legal, we can then go and infer other pieces of information like the position type, the start date, the role, and even the salary that's related to this particular new employee. And then we've also got a set of tabs at the top, and these tabs allow us to collect additional pieces of information about this employee. We don't have to put everything into a really long form you have to scroll through. We can break it up into logical sections of the form using tabs. And in this particular example, we're collecting things like equipment information. So based upon the decisions that we make within this form, are we going to use new hardware? Do we need to order, or rather, are we going to use existing hardware? Do we need to order new hardware? If existing hardware, can we go ahead and collect the asset information? Various different items like that. We can start building out a purchase order item list down there in the middle. And this information will be used in the execution of the workflow process downstream. So there are very many different back office roles that will be involved in this and can start using this information that's collected. We're also able to go and surface up things like visual maps, maybe of where the location that the customer, or in this case the employee, either lives today, or maybe which office they happen to be in. So we've got everything filled out. We're going to go ahead and hit that submit button in the lower right hand corner there. And then K2 is going to come back and tell us that they've collected the information from the form, that we've saved it off, and then we're going to go ahead and initiate our workflow process. So in the back end, now that all that form information is completed, really the back end process starts. And again, this is a process that's built on top of the K2 platform. And really, realistically, it should look a lot like a process that you would model maybe in your environment. So once the workflow process starts, the first thing that can happen is, as somebody that either started the process or is maybe a participator in the process, we could go and see what's called view flow. And a view flow is that visualization of the process instance. Everything that's a part of this process that's green is maybe a part of the process we've already completed. Anything that happens to be blue is going to be a part of the process where we're still waiting for something to happen. So you can see that there's a number of different parallel activities that happen within this process, things like facilities management and security, and some of the HR stuff around documentation has already been completed, but we're waiting for one of the steps at IT authorization to complete. If we happen to go and click into that particular activity, we can then go and see more additional information about that. So the name and description of the particular task, maybe when it started or how long it's been running for, as well as who's participating in that task. Now again, within K2, you can assign tasks to single users, individual users, multiple groups of users, various different ways to go and construct that task information. And in this particular example, we've selected just a single user that we sourced from the form. So that hiring manager is going to be the one that also needs to go, in this particular case, fill out that IT authorization information. Back into the process itself, a lot of the very traditional and time-consuming manual tasks like setting up user accounts and setting up email addresses can all be automated by the K2 platform. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and provision an Active Directory account and set up an Exchange mailbox. And we get a notification maybe to the manager that there's a new user, that their login has been derived, their password, as well as their Exchange email address. As we jump back into that particular portal, we can see that now our new employee, the process is underway. We can see high-level information around that employee, things like who the manager is, what role they're going to have, maybe where they're at in the overall execution of the workflow process. So as we move on, and you may remember that we saw following the creation of that Active Directory account and some of the email Exchange inbox that was created and provisioned automatically by the system, we now need to go and assign multiple different parallel paths and tasks to different departments and groups. And you see an example of that here. We've got task assignments that go out to facilities management for things like setting up a desk or a workspace, HR to go and collect some of that payroll and I-9 and W-4 information, security to go and do things like badging and authentication to different systems, and then IT management. Now, the good thing about this in this particular scenario is that each one of those groups can work independently of each other. They can reuse that same form that we saw earlier, but we don't have to wait for one of them to maybe complete this task before it can move on to the other. So the processes can be designed either in a serial fashion or in this case in a parallel fashion as well. In the case of the IT management step, we might actually have a need for some rework to happen here based upon the decisions that were made within that IT management form, and that can go back and forth an infinite amount of times, however many times it needs to get that particular decision concluded. From there, as we start to go and complete some of the other particular workflow steps, things like facilities management and human resources and security, we've designed the workflow process in such a way that says we want to wait until all those different parallel tracks are completed. So in this case, we're waiting on IT management to be concluded. In this case, we've now gone through the process of sending out the notification task to the user. So someone within the IT department needs to be assigned a task, and here's a great way to go and visualize that through what's called a task notification email. From within this email, they can elect if they want to go ahead and action that task directly by clicking on the work list item link there, or they can simply reply to the email, which allows them to action it directly from email. This user can also, however, go into a different type of portal that allows us to go and service up tasks that are relevant to them, as well as maybe other applications that they're participating in. Now, in this particular case, what we're looking at here is what we call our K2 work list. And within this work list, we see that we get the option to go ahead and open up that form, directly approve or reject it immediately from the work list without having to go and jump into the form, look at things like view flow, which we saw earlier, and then also do other task actions like redirect or delegate this task to somebody else. Brandon wants to go ahead and open this form up, though, and take a deeper look in there. So as he opens that form up, we see a very similar version of that initiation form. We've actually reused a large part of this form, so we don't have to build everything from scratch. Again, we're able to go and reuse the views that happen to be within that form, and we can service up information in a read-only format here. We can also see a nice header information, the reference number to the process, who the originator was, when it was started, where we're at in the execution of workflow process, various different pieces of information about the overall process that are relevant to this particular user. Now, Brandon, being in the IT department, needs to go and understand more about the requests around that, so we can click on the IT requirements tab and see, again, all that information that was collected at the very beginning. Things like the network drive and email distribution list that this user needs to have access to, things like equipment information or existing hardware maybe that needs to be reused. Now, Brandon could go and complete the form in this particular case, but what happens if maybe Brandon happens to be out of the office? Well, what is the story there? The good thing about the forms that are built on top of the K2 platform is that they're easily accessible within our K2 mobile app. So here's an example of that application. I'm logged in as Brandon. I can see that IT authorization task. It's going to be the exact same series of tasks that exist within my work list. And if I want to go ahead and open up that particular task, I get a high-level information around that, and then I can see a mobile version of that same form. The beautiful thing about smart forms is we don't have to rebuild different versions of a form. It's the same form that we design. It just happens that the experience of it changes. It's what's called responsive design. And the form will actually change size and representation of that form based upon the type of device that it happens to be. Now, in this case, Brandon's going to go and action that task, as you can see here. And then all the access requests that were needed within that process have now been granted for the new user. And we can move on to that final step which we were waiting for, which is the notification to the HR system and the HR team that they can complete all of their work. As someone within HR, they can log in and see, again, that high-level information They can also see all the scheduling training that they need to put on the calendar for this particular user, as well as home address and bank detail information. Again, pulling various different pieces of information from various different systems into a single form for this user. And once all of that training has been assigned and all the onboarding activities have been completed, the employee will be ultimately successfully onboarded into the organization, and an automatic notification will be sent out to that hiring manager along with a detailed PDF record of everything that happened. Everything from the role request information to the employee details to the access requirements to whatever existing hardware might need required can all be captured and saved in some kind of long-term document storage system if needed. All along the while, again, all of the process metric information has automatically been collected and surfaced up to process owners or users within the context of the process so that they can ultimately gain better insight in the way that this particular process and the users within this process are performing. Now that we've seen an example of what an application that's built on top of the K2 platform can look like, let's take a look at how some of those applications are built. Within the K2 platform, we offer rich interactive design experiences. These allow you to go and effortlessly design the connections to multiple different data systems that exist outside the K2 platform, and then allow you to go and reuse those data connections in things like forms that you build. Our Smart Forms technology automatically scales to various different types of devices or experiences. And we also provide an ability to go and effortlessly build workflow processes from visual, rich, drag and drop design experiences. Thanks.